The royal pack had been fractured by secrets for 10 years, and Alpha King Aiden had felt the invisible cracks spreading through his kingdom with every passing season. He stood at the window of his private study, palms pressed against the frosted glass, watching storm clouds gather over the western territories like a bruise forming on the horizon. The castle sprawled beneath him, ancient stone and iron that had protected his bloodline for generations. Yet somewhere within these very walls, something was wrong. His wolf knew it. His instincts screamed it. And he had been ignoring both for far too long. The signs had been there for months. Guards reporting strange sounds from the West Wing at night. Servants whispering about locked doors and Prince Ethan's increasing paranoia about his quarters. That maddening phantom scent of vanilla and rain that would hit him in certain corridors, only to vanish before he could track its source. 10 years since he'd taken the throne alongside his twin in a ceremony meant to unite the pack's military and political powers. 10 years of watching his identical twin become someone he no longer recognized, their bond eroding into polite distance and unspoken resentments. And 10 years of searching for his fated mate. The royal healers assured him she existed. His wolf's restlessness was proof. But the mate bond was mysterious even to those who'd experienced it. And some wolves searched their entire lives without success. Lately his wolf had been clawing at his ribs with an urgency that bordered on feral, especially during the full moon, especially when the wind blew from the west. Tonight the storm was making it worse. The barometric pressure, the electrical charge in the air, the howling wind through ancient corridors. It was all heightening his senses to an unbearable degree. Every instinct he possessed was firing at once, screaming at him to move, to hunt, to find what had been hidden. But hidden where? And by whom? 3 nights ago he'd caught that vanilla scent again, stronger than ever, laced with something that made his wolf snarl with protective rage. Fear, pain, desperation. The scent of a wolf in distress. He'd followed it to the entrance of the West Wing, where the trail died at Ethan's reinforced doors. When he demanded entry, his brother had appeared in black armor, eyes cold and dismissive. Nothing here but military documents, brother. You're welcome to search if you don't trust your own blood. The challenge had been clear. Accuse your twin of treachery based on nothing but a scent you can't prove exists. Aiden had backed down, hating himself for it. Had the loneliness of his position finally broken something essential inside him? But tonight, with the storm raging and his wolf thrashing against the cage of his control, Aiden knew he was done being cautious. Done being diplomatic. Done pretending everything was fine when every instinct howled that it wasn't. The scent hit him again as lightning split the sky, vanilla and terror and something else, something his wolf recognized on a level deeper than conscious thought. Mate. His brother's quarters were in the West Wing. Without conscious decision, Aiden was moving. He didn't call for guards. Didn't send a messenger. The time for protocol had passed. Thunder shook the castle walls as he reached the reinforced oak doors of Ethan's private chambers. He didn't bother knocking. The door exploded inward under the force of his shoulder, ancient oak splintering like kindling. The crash echoed through the corridor behind him, but Aiden was already inside, his wolf's vision sharpening everything into crystalline focus. The scene before him didn't make sense at first. His mind refused to process it, rejected it as impossible even as his eyes took in every terrible detail. Ethan sat on the edge of an enormous bed draped in crimson silk, still wearing his black ceremonial armor, the plates catching the lamplight like obsidian. He looked utterly calm, one ankle crossed over his knee, hands resting casually on the pommel of the sword laid across his lap. He didn't startle at the intrusion, didn't even look surprised. He looked like he'd been waiting, but it was the woman on the floor that made Aiden's heart stop. She was chained. Actually chained, heavy iron shackles around her wrists connected to a bolt in the marble floor by links that allowed her perhaps 3 feet of movement. She wore a dress that might have once been beautiful, pale green silk now torn and stained, hanging off one shoulder. Her blonde hair fell in tangled waves around a face that was too thin, too pale, marked by exhaustion and fear. And she was staring at him with eyes that held recognition and absolute terror in equal measure. The scent hit him like a physical blow. Vanilla and rain and something uniquely, devastatingly hers. His wolf surged forward with such force that Aiden actually staggered, his hands shifting to claws before he could control it. Mate. The word tore from his throat, barely human. Ah. Ethan's voice was soft, almost amused. I wondered how long it would take you to follow your nose, brother. 3 weeks she's been here. I was beginning to think the great Alpha King had lost his edge. Aiden couldn't speak, couldn't think beyond the roaring in his head and the primal need to get to her, to remove the chains, to destroy whoever had done this. His brother, his twin, his own blood. 3 weeks, he managed, the words coming out as a growl. You've kept my mate chained in your room for 3 weeks. The woman made a small, broken sound. She was trembling now, pressing herself back against the bed frame as if trying to disappear into it. When Aiden took a step toward her, she flinched so violently the chains rattled. Don't, she whispered. Please don't. The plea shattered something in his chest. She thought he was Ethan. Of course she did. They had the same face, the same voice, the same build. How many times had his brother come to her wearing that armor, with that cold expression? Aurora. Ethan said her name like he owned it. That's what she calls herself. Beautiful, isn't she? A white wolf, Aiden. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know what the prophecies say about white wolves and the alphas they bond with? You tried to force a mate bond. Aiden's voice was deadly quiet now, the rage compressing into something cold and precise. You kidnapped and imprisoned my fated mate to steal her power for yourself. Your mate. Ethan rose smoothly, his hand still on his sword. She was unclaimed. I found her first. That makes her fair game by the old laws. There are no old laws that permit this. Aiden was moving now, circling toward the woman, watching his brother's every micro-movement. This is imprisonment. Torture. Treason. He dropped to his knees in front of her, moving slowly, deliberately, keeping his hands visible and his wolf leashed despite every instinct screaming at him to touch her, claim her, protect her. Up close, he could see the bruises on her wrists from the shackles, the hollow look in her eyes, the way she held herself like something broken trying desperately not to shatter completely. I'm not him, Aiden said softly. I know we look the same, but I'm not Ethan. I'm Aiden, and I'm going to get you out of here. She was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. No, no, you always say that. You always. I've never seen you before this moment. He held her gaze, letting her see the truth in his eyes, the wolf that was nothing like the monster that had kept her here. But you're mine, my fated mate, and I swear on my crown and my life that I will never let anyone hurt you again. Behind him, Ethan laughed. How touching. Tell me, brother, are you going to fight me for her? Aiden rose slowly, his wolf finally slipping free of its restraints. Yes. Aiden moved before the word fully left his lips, closing the distance between them with supernatural speed. His fist connected with Ethan's jaw hard enough to snap his brother's head back, the crack of impact echoing through the room like a gunshot. Ethan stumbled but didn't fall, bringing his hand up to wipe blood from his split lip. Then he laughed, the sound wrong and hollow. There he is, the righteous Alpha King, finally showing his teeth. You imprisoned my mate. Aiden's voice was barely recognizable, his wolf bleeding through every syllable. In my own castle, under my own roof. I was keeping her safe. Ethan circled slowly, hand still on his sword hilt. Safe for the ascension. The white wolf prophecy isn't just folklore, Aiden. Whoever bonds with her doesn't just gain power, they gain absolute dominance. Invincibility. The kind of strength that makes challenges to the throne impossible. So you were going to force the bond and kill me? It wasn't a question. Eventually. Ethan shrugged, utterly unrepentant. Though I'll admit, I underestimated how difficult it would be to break her will. 3 weeks and she still flinches from my touch. Impressive resilience for an Omega. Aiden lunged again, but this time Ethan was ready. They collided in a tangle of fists and fury, identical in strength and speed, years of sparring together making them deadly mirrors of each other. Furniture shattered. Blood spattered across silk and marble. Behind them, Aurora screamed. The sound cut through Aiden's rage like ice water. He broke away, chest heaving, and saw her pressed against the wall, hands over her ears, eyes squeezed shut. She was sobbing, repeating the same words over and over. Stop, please. Guards! Aiden's alpha command boomed through the castle, amplified by fury and authority. Within seconds, Dolphy and Reagan burst through the broken doorway, weapons drawn. They froze at the scene before them, their king and prince both blooded, both in fighting stances, and the chained woman cowering on the floor. Arrest him, Aiden ordered, pointing at Ethan. High treason, kidnapping, attempted murder of the throne. You'll need proof, brother. Ethan didn't resist as Dolphy moved forward with silver-laced restraints. And I have allies on the council who won't believe your word over mine. I have all the proof I need. Aiden gestured to Aurora. Reagan, get the key to those shackles. Now. His guard moved quickly, searching Ethan's armor until he found a small silver key. Aiden took it with trembling hands and approached Aurora slowly, like she was a wounded animal that might bolt. I'm going to unlock these, he said softly. Then I'm going to carry you out of here. I won't hurt you. I promise. She didn't respond, didn't even seem to hear him. When the shackles fell away, she just stared at her freed wrists like she couldn't comprehend what she was seeing. Aiden gathered her into his arms as gently as he could. She went rigid immediately, a choked sound of terror escaping her throat. No, please, I'll be good, I'll. Sure. You're safe now. He stood carefully, holding her against his chest. She weighed almost nothing, and the realization made his rage spike again. Dolphy, take the prince to the dungeons. Silver chains. Maximum security. As he carried Aurora past his twin, Ethan smiled. She'll never trust you, you know. Every time she looks at your face, she'll see me. Aiden didn't answer. He just held his broken mate closer and walked out of that terrible room, her tears soaking into his shirt as she whispered his brother's name over and over like a curse. Aurora woke to softness. The kind of softness she'd forgotten existed. Silk sheets instead of cold marble. Pillows that cradled instead of chains that cut. For one blissful moment, she thought she'd dreamed it all. Then the scent hit her. Male. Alpha. Him. She bolted upright with a gasp, eyes wild, searching for the black armor and cold smile. Instead, she found an older woman with silver-streaked hair sitting beside the bed, holding a bowl of something that smelled like herbs and honey. Easy, child. The woman's voice was gentle, her hands raised in a calming gesture. You're safe. I'm Seraphine, the royal healer. No one here will hurt you. Where? Aurora's voice cracked from disuse. Where is he? If you mean Prince Ethan, he's in the dungeons where he belongs. Seraphine dipped a cloth into the bowl. If you mean King Aiden, he's standing outside that door and has been for the past 6 hours. May I tend to your wrists? Aurora looked down and saw the raw, bloody rings where the shackles had been. The sight made everything real again, made her stomach heave with memory. She nodded numbly as Seraphine began applying a cooling salve that eased the burning. I know this is difficult to understand, the healer continued softly, but the man who kept you captive and the man who freed you are 2 different people. Twins? Yes. Identical in appearance, but nothing alike where it matters. I don't believe you. Aurora pulled her hands back, wrapping her arms around herself. This is another game. He's testing me again. It's not a game. A male voice from the doorway made her freeze. She knew that voice. Deep and commanding. The voice that had whispered terrible things in the dark. The voice that had laughed when she begged. Aiden stepped into the room, and Aurora scrambled backward until her spine hit the headboard. He stopped immediately, staying near the door, his hands visible and empty. Please, she whispered. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't. I'm not him. The anguish in those 3 words sounded real, felt real. Aurora, I'm Aiden. I'm the Alpha King. Ethan is my twin brother, and I had no idea what he was doing to you. I swear on my crown, on my wolf, on everything I am, I would never hurt you." She wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted to believe the pain in his eyes was genuine, that the face she'd learned to fear could belong to someone kind. But she'd been broken too many times by hope. "You're wearing different clothes," she said carefully, studying him. "No black armor. Instead, a simple white shirt and dark pants." His hair was slightly different too, shorter than she remembered. "I'm not him," Aiden repeated, and this time his voice broke. "You're my fated mate. My wolf recognized you the moment I saw you. I've been searching for you for 10 years, and my own brother." He stopped, jaw clenching. 3 weeks. He kept you chained for 3 weeks, and I didn't know. I didn't protect you." Seraphine stood quietly and moved toward the door. "I'll give you both a moment." "No," Aurora's plea was sharp with panic. "Don't leave me alone with him." The healer paused, looking between them with something like pity. "Child, if King Aiden wanted to hurt you, I couldn't stop him anyway. But he won't. I've known this man since he was a boy, and he's nothing like his brother." She left anyway, the door clicking softly shut. Aiden stayed exactly where he was, making himself smaller somehow despite his size. "I won't come closer. But I need you to know, Ethan will pay for what he did to you. I promise you that." Aurora believed him, and that terrified her most of all. The silver chains burned where they touched skin, but Ethan had endured worse. He sat in the center of his cell, back straight, expression calm, waiting. The dungeons beneath the castle were supposed to be impenetrable. Ancient stone reinforced with iron and spelled to suppress a wolf's ability to shift. But every fortress had its weaknesses, and Ethan had spent years learning every one of them. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Not the heavy tread of guards, but something quieter, more careful. "My prince." Vilkas appeared at the cell bars, his lined face barely visible in the torchlight. The old counselor's loyalty had been purchased years ago with promises of power and position when Ethan took the throne. "The timing is unfortunate. The timing is perfect." Ethan smiled, the expression cold and calculated. "My brother has finally revealed his weakness. The white wolf is everything the prophesies promised, Vilkas. Whoever bonds with her will be unstoppable. And yet she's bonding with the king, not you. The bond hasn't been completed. There's still time." Ethan rose smoothly despite the chains. "Is everything in place?" Vilkas nodded, producing a key from his robes. "General Farkas has positioned loyal soldiers at the eastern gate. The guard rotation changes in 20 minutes. That's your window." "And the girl?" "Still in the king's chambers. He hasn't left her side except to address the council this morning." Vilkas's expression soured. "He's announced his intention to try you for treason. The execution is set for the new moon unless you—" "I won't be here for the new moon." The lock clicked open and Ethan stepped out, rolling his shoulders. "Farkas knows to meet me at the northern border. With half the Shadow Army, as promised. But my prince, once you flee, there's no coming back. This will mean civil war." Ethan's smile widened. "I'm counting on it." 3 floors above, Aiden knocked softly on his own bedroom door before entering. He'd given Aurora his chambers, the safest and most comfortable rooms in the castle, while he'd been sleeping in his study. If sleeping was what one could call the restless hours he spent staring at reports and trying not to think about his mate flinching from his touch. She was sitting by the window when he entered, wrapped in the thick furs he'd brought her yesterday. She didn't look at him, but she didn't recoil either. Progress, he told himself. Painfully slow progress. "I brought food." He set the tray on the table near the door, staying at a careful distance. Fresh bread, honeyed tea, fruit from the southern orchards. "Seraphine says you need to eat more." "I'm not hungry." "You said that yesterday too." He kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. "And the day before." "Aurora, please. You're still healing." She finally turned to look at him, and the haunted emptiness in her eyes made his chest ache. Why do you care? Because you're my mate. Because you've been hurt and I couldn't stop it. Because, he stopped, chose his words carefully. Because you deserve kindness. Not because of what you are or what power you might give me, but because you're a person who's suffered enough. Something flickered across her face. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the smallest crack in her armor. The bread smells good, she admitted quietly. Aiden smiled, careful to keep it soft and unthreatening. Then I'll just leave it here and go. Take your time. As he turned to leave, he heard her whisper, "Thank you." It was the first kind thing she'd said to him. He held on to it like a lifeline as he walked back to face another report, another crisis, another day of his brother rotting in the dungeons below. He didn't know that by nightfall, those dungeons would be empty. The explosion shook the castle to its foundations, shattering windows and sending ancient stone dust cascading from the ceiling. Aiden was on his feet instantly, his wolf surging to the surface as alarm bells began to clang throughout the fortress. The dungeons. Reagan burst through the study door, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. They've blown the eastern wall. The prince. Gone. Aiden already knew, his gut twisting with a certainty that felt like ice in his veins. How many casualties? 4 guards dead, 6 wounded. And my king, Reagan's expression turned grim. General Farkas is gone. He took half the Shadow Army with him. The second blow landed harder than the first. Farkas had been Ethan's right hand for years, loyal to the prince's military command. Of course he'd side with his true master when the choice was forced. Seal the gates, Aiden commanded, already moving toward his chambers where Aurora was. Double the guards on the remaining dungeons and secure the council. I want Vilkas found and questioned. This had inside help. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his heart hammering not from exertion but from the primal need to ensure his mate was safe. When he burst through the door, Aurora was pressed against the far wall, eyes wide with terror. What's happening? Her voice was small, fragile. My brother escaped. He moved to the window, scanning the courtyard below where soldiers were scrambling into defensive positions. In the distance, he could see smoke rising from the northern road. He's fled to the northern territories with half my army. Aurora's face went pale. Because of me? No. Aiden turned to face her. Because of his own ambition and treachery. But he wanted me for the power. The prophecy. Her hands were shaking. This is my fault. He'll raise an army and come back for me, and your people will die because I... Stop. The command in his voice was soft but absolute. This isn't your fault, Aurora. You're a victim, not a catalyst. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Then let me go. I'll leave, disappear somewhere he can't find me. The war will end before it begins. It won't end. Aiden crossed the room slowly, stopping just outside her personal space. Ethan doesn't just want you. He wants the throne. He wants everything I have, and he'll use any excuse to take it. If you leave, he'll still come. The only difference is I'll be fighting him without my fated mate by my side. I'm not strong enough to help you fight. You survived 3 weeks of captivity and kept your spirit intact. You're stronger than you know. He held her gaze, letting her see the truth in his eyes. And I need you here. Not because of prophecies or power, but because you're mine and I'm yours. That bond might be the only thing that can stop this war. I don't even know if I can trust you yet. I know. His voice softened. But I'm asking you to try. Stay with me. Let me protect you. Let me prove I'm not him. Outside, another explosion rumbled in the distance. Ethan was making his message clear. He was coming back, and he was bringing hell with him. Aurora wiped her tears, straightened her spine, and nodded once. I'll stay. But not because I trust you. Because I won't let him win. It wasn't love. It wasn't even affection. But it was a beginning, and Aiden would take whatever she could give. It happened 3 days after the escape, in the palace gardens under a full moon that hung like a silver coin in the sky. Aiden had brought Aurora outside at Seraphine's suggestion, fresh air and moonlight to help her heal. She'd been staring at the moon for several minutes, her expression distant and yearning. "I haven't shifted in years," she said suddenly. "He wouldn't let me. He tried to force it at first, used commands and threats, but it never worked. Eventually he just kept me human, kept me weak." "You're not weak." Aiden stood several feet away, giving her space as always. "And you don't have to shift if you're not ready." "I want to." Her voice trembled with something that might have been hope. "I want to remember what it feels like to be whole." She closed her eyes, and Aiden felt the shift beginning through the mate bond that had been growing stronger each day. It started as a ripple of power that made the air shimmer, then built into something that stole his breath. Light seemed to emanate from her skin as her body began to transform, the change more graceful and natural than any shift he'd ever witnessed. And then she was standing on 4 legs, and Aiden's wolf howled in recognition and awe. Her coat was pure white, luminescent in the moonlight like fresh snow kissed by starlight. She was smaller than most wolves but perfectly proportioned, elegant and ethereal. When she turned to look at him, her eyes were the same clear blue as her human form, but filled now with wonder instead of fear. "Impossible." The voice came from behind them. Elder Lupa emerged from the shadows, her ancient face creased with amazement. "The prophecy. It's true." Aurora shifted back to human form, and Aiden quickly draped his cloak around her shoulders. She was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time since he'd found her. "What prophecy?" Aiden asked, though his wolf already knew, already understood what it had recognized the moment he'd seen her in that terrible room. Lupa approached slowly, her gaze fixed on Aurora with something like reverence. "The white wolf shall bond with the true king, and through their union, grant him dominion over all challenges. Invincible in battle, unshakable in authority, blessed by the moon herself." She turned to Aiden. "But the prophecy is specific, my king. The white wolf cannot be forced or claimed through violence. She can only shift for the one who holds her heart." Understanding crashed over Aiden like a wave. That's why Ethan kept her chained. He tried to force the shift, but it wouldn't work because she didn't love him, Lupa finished. Could never love him. The bond must be willing, genuine, born of trust and affection. She looked between them meaningfully. "It seems your mate's wolf has made her choice, even if her human heart is still healing." Aurora's hand found Aiden's, her fingers intertwining with his for the first time without fear. "I shifted because I felt safe," she said quietly. "Because for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the alpha standing beside me." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even complete trust. But it was progress, real and tangible, and when Aurora's wolf pressed against Aiden's leg in a gesture of tentative affection, he felt hope bloom in his chest. "Your brother couldn't break her," Lupa said softly. "But you, my king, are helping her heal. That is the true power of the prophecy, not domination, but devotion." In the north, Ethan was gathering his armies. But here in the moonlit garden, Aiden held his mate's hand and felt the tide beginning to turn. The siege began at dawn, Ethan's forces surrounding the castle like a noose tightening around a throat. Aiden stood on the battlements, watching his brother's banners snap in the wind. Black flags bearing the shadow wolf sigil that had once represented unity but now meant only betrayal. 20,000 strong, Dolphy reported grimly. "His recruited from the northern packs. They believe his lies about you imprisoning the white wolf, not him." Aiden's jaw clenched. Of course Ethan had twisted the narrative, made himself the liberator and Aiden the villain. "How long can we hold?" "Weeks, maybe a month if we ration carefully." "But my king," Dolphy hesitated. "There are murmurs in the court. Some believe we should surrender the girl to end this. She has a name." Aiden's voice went deadly quiet. "And anyone who suggests handing my mate over to that monster can join him outside the walls." He felt it then, a pull through the bond that made his wolf surge to attention. Aurora. Something was wrong. He found her in their chambers, curled on the bed with Seraphine hovering nearby. The scent hit him immediately, sweet and intoxicating, the unmistakable musk of a she-wolf entering heat. His wolf roared with need, but Aiden forced it down, forced himself to stay in control. The stress triggered it early, Seraphine explained quietly. The siege, the fear, the bond strengthening, it's overwhelming her system. She's asking for you. Aiden approached carefully, his entire body thrumming with want and restraint. Aurora. She looked up at him with eyes that were more wolf than human, pupils dilated with heat and need. It hurts, she whispered. Everything hurts and I need. I know. He sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining distance even as every instinct screamed at him to touch her. But I won't take advantage of this. Not when you're vulnerable. I'm always vulnerable. Her hand reached for his, pulling him closer. But I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want him to own my fear. She pressed his palm to her chest, over her racing heart. I want to choose this. Choose you. Aurora. I can tell the difference now. Her voice was stronger, more certain despite the trembling in her limbs. The way you look at me versus the way he did. You see me as a person, not a prize. You've waited, been patient, proven yourself every single day. She shifted closer, her scent wrapping around him like silk. My wolf knows you're mine. It's time I claimed you. The last of his restraint crumbled when she kissed him, tentative at first but growing bolder. The bond between them flared to life, a golden thread pulling taut and bright. When she pulled back, her eyes had changed. No more fear, only determination and something that looked remarkably like trust. I need you to mark me, she said. Complete the bond. Give us the strength to end this war. Are you sure? Instead of answering with words, Aurora shifted her hair aside, exposing the curve of her neck. The ultimate gesture of trust from a wolf to her mate. Aiden's control shattered. He pulled her close, his wolf rising to meet hers. And when their lips met again, it was with a hunger that had nothing to do with heat and everything to do with destiny finally falling into place. Hours later, as the moon rose over the besieged castle, Aurora pressed her teeth to Aiden's shoulder and marked him as hers. The bond snapped into completion with a force that shook the very foundations of the castle. And outside the walls, Ethan's wolf howled in rage at what he'd lost forever. The western wall fell on the 7th day of the siege, brought down by explosives and Farkas's tactical brilliance. Ethan's forces poured through the breach like a dark tide, and despite the desperate defense, Aiden knew his brother's true target wasn't the castle itself. It was the throne room. It had always been about the throne. Aiden stood before the ancient seat of his ancestors, Aurora at his side. The bond between them thrummed with power, her presence amplifying his strength exactly as the prophecy had promised. He could feel her wolf intertwined with his, two souls merged into something greater than either alone. You should go to the safe room, he said, though he already knew her answer. I'm not hiding anymore. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. We end this together. The massive doors burst open, and Ethan strode through, still in his black armor, flanked by soldiers wearing his colors. He stopped when he saw them, a cruel smile playing at his lips. How touching. The happy couple, ready to die together. He dismissed his guards with a wave. Leave us. This is between family. The doors closed with an echoing boom, leaving the three of them alone in the vast chamber. It didn't have to be this way, Aiden said, and meant it. You were my brother. My twin. We were supposed to rule together. I was never your equal, just your shadow. Ethan began circling, predatory and smooth. But she changed that, didn't she? The white wolf who was supposed to be mine. She was never yours, Aurora's voice rang clear. You kept me chained like an animal. That's not love, it's ownership. And what do you think this is? Ethan gestured between her and Aiden. You think he's different? We're identical, little wolf. Same face, same voice, same. Aiden attacked, his wolf erupting as he shifted mid-lunge. Ethan met him with equal ferocity, and suddenly the throne room was filled with the sounds of claws on marble and wolves tearing at each other with savage intensity. They were perfectly matched. Every move Aiden made, Ethan counted. Years of training together meant they knew each other's strategies, each other's weaknesses. Blood splattered across ancient stone as they fought with the desperation of a bond broken beyond repair. Then Ethan did something unforgivable. He shifted back to human form in the middle of the fight, his features rearranging into an expression of pain and fear that Aiden had worn 1,000 times. "Aurora," he cried in Aiden's voice, perfect mimicry honed by a lifetime of shared genetics. "Help me. He's the one who kept you chained. I've been trying to save you." For one terrible moment, Aurora froze. The two men looked identical, both blooded, both desperate. Ethan had even torn his own clothes to match Aiden's injuries. But then Aurora closed her eyes and reached for the bond, that golden thread that connected her soul to her mate's. She felt Aiden's presence like a beacon, warm and steady and true, coming from the wolf still in fighting form. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with fury. "Wrong answer, Prince." She shifted in a burst of white light and launched herself at Ethan, her smaller frame hitting him with the force of prophecy fulfilled. Her jaws found his shoulder, tearing through armor and flesh, and the distraction was all Aiden needed. His wolf descended on his brother with finality, claws and teeth finding vulnerable points, dominance absolute and unquestionable. When Ethan finally submitted, throat bared and whimpering, it was Aurora's growl that kept him pinned. "Yield," Aiden commanded, human voice returning. "Or die." Ethan yielded, and the throne room fell silent except for ragged breathing and the distant sounds of surrender outside the walls. The council chamber was silent as Aiden stood before the assembled witnesses, his hand resting on Aurora's shoulder. Ethan knelt between them in silver chains, his face a mask of barely contained rage and humiliation. Farkas and Vilkas knelt beside him, the architects of treason awaiting their fate. "By the laws of our ancestors and the authority vested in me as Alpha King," Aiden's voice rang clear and unwavering, "I hereby strip Prince Ethan of all titles, lands, and rights within this kingdom. You are banished to the Shadowlands beyond our borders, never to return on pain of death." Ethan's eyes flashed to Aurora, and the hatred there was palpable. "You could have been a queen with me. Instead you chose to be his pet." Aurora stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying the unmistakable authority of an alpha in her own right. "I chose to be a partner, not a prisoner. There's a difference you'll never understand. The Shadowlands will kill you within a year," Dolphy added, his tone matter-of-fact. "No pack, no resources, no allies. It's a death sentence without the mercy of a quick end." "Mercy?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "From the brother who took everything from me. I took nothing you didn't try to steal first." Aiden's expression hardened. "You're alive because we share blood. Don't mistake that for weakness." Reagan and two guards hauled Ethan to his feet. As they dragged him toward the doors, he looked back one final time. "This isn't over, brother." "Yes," Aiden said quietly. "It is." The doors closed, and with them, a chapter of betrayal and darkness that had nearly destroyed them all. Aurora turned to face the council, her golden hair catching the light like a crown. "The kingdom needs healing. We'll start by redistributing the lands Ethan controlled, offering pardons to those who were misled, and rebuilding what was destroyed." The council members bowed, and for the first time, they addressed her not as the king's mate, but as their queen. 1 year later, Aurora stood in the garden where she'd first shifted, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The scars on her wrists had faded to thin silver lines, barely visible now. She rarely thought about the chains anymore, about those terrible weeks in captivity. Aiden found her there, as he always did, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. She leaned into his embrace without hesitation, marveling at how natural it had become. "The Northern Territories report full harvest," he murmured against her hair. "The Southern Packs have renewed their alliance. And Elder Looper says the prophecy's power is still growing." "Good." Aurora turned in his arms, her smile soft and genuine. "Because we're going to need it." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach, where new life was just beginning to make itself known through the bond. Aiden's eyes widened, joy and wonder transforming his features. "Are you Twins, she confirmed, laughing at his stunned expression. Seraphine confirmed it this morning. A boy and a girl. He kissed her then, deep and reverent, and Aurora felt the rightness of it down to her bones. This was what the prophecy had truly meant, not domination through power, but strength through partnership. Not a king and his possession, but two alphas ruling as equals. In the distance, the castle stood strong against the twilight, its walls rebuilt and reinforced. The west wing had been converted into a library, the room where she'd been chained now filled with books and light. The past was gone, the chains were broken, and the future stretched before them, bright and boundless and finally, blessedly free.
If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me where you are watching from and what you love most about this story. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next. Your hopeless romantic, Amora.